You seem to have given this a fair bit of thought.
It's my job to think as dark wizards do. Perhaps you remember. I believe in a practical approach. You need to know what you're up against. You need to be prepared.
I used to see videos on this channel quite a few years ago. Recently, I was watching a video on Truthstream Media about phones becoming part of the body. The narrator of the channel then states that she has a very good imagination, but can't fathom how a phone would be put in the human body or in the human brain. In this video, I'm going to answer that question, and for the record, I've been answering that question for many years, whether that be directly or inadvertently. And I can promise you that when this goes down, only small details will be different, if at all. And all the proponents of this technology claim it will be here and ready by 2030. So this is how it goes down. First off, you will not have a physical phone. You will have a virtual phone. This phone will simply be a database with your contacts and the rest of your information. Your virtual information will be in the cloud. Your body and a wearable device will carry and transmit the virtual phone's information. In other words, you will be the phone. It's not an accident that scientists want to use human beings as an antenna for 6G. And by the way, how do you test something like this on a network to make sure that it is operable and capable of dealing with masses of people connected to it? You test it covertly. But what exactly is a wearable device in the 21st century? Most patents for human-based networks, human tracking, human body communication, or surveillance technology have one thing in common. They all mention an apparatus referred to as a wearable device or sensor, without ever going into detail on what that wearable device actually consists of. Most people would think of a bracelet, as many people allude to. Someone may think of a wristwatch or something similar, and these people would be very cute and very 20th century for thinking this way. In reality, wearable device has nothing to do with anything even close to that stuff. In this world of shady legal definitions, it has become blatantly obvious that individuals and corporations are intentionally using vague terminology to avoid disclosing information that may scare people or warn them of intent. So in the spirit of getting back into reality, let's throw the ideas of space-age wristwatches, bracelets, necklaces, and any other naive, ignorance-based fantasy in the garbage where it belongs. In the 21st century, a wearable device is anything that resides on or in the body. And what these patents and other documents fail to talk about is where we are actually standing in the realm of wearable devices. Once a modern wearable device is on the body, on the skin, or within the body, it is completely invisible in most cases. Although most of this technology is a decade old or older, here is a short list of wearable devices that can interact with radio frequency, electricity, and send or receive data. Neural lace. Championed by Elon Musk, neural lace is made of a secretive layer that will grow, or as they claim, assemble on the brain. The words are actually interchangeable, which will then begin to interact with radio waves, allowing virtual telepathy, the monitoring of subvocal speech, and more, similar to Mark Zuckerberg's obsession with artificial telepathy. They are secretive about what it is made of, but claim it can be broken down and passed out through the urine by taking something that they refuse to speak about. This technology is always brought in under the guise of helping kids, mental health, or helping the medical industry, and that is exactly what they have been doing. Pay attention and you will see it. Nokia's interactive tattooing, which can vibrate your skin when a notification is received. Most of this stuff is over 10 years old and has made serious leaps since then, or since anyone has talked about it. In reality, it can do much more than just vibrate your skin. Fungus. This isn't even hidden anymore. It's going mainstream. Research will show you that fungus can allow whatever it has embedded itself in to become piezoelectric or piezoelectric, depending on who you're talking to, which means it can interact and transfer electricity, data, sound, or a myriad of other things. In this article, fungus is shown to make wood sensitive to frequencies, which is a great cover article, as anything infected with fungus would become sensitive, including the human body. This is a subject I've been speaking about online for about a decade, and that is a wearable device. Smart dust and nano. This subject has been made to appear space age to the average person, but it is actively being used in just about everything. Once this stuff is in the body, you are technically wearing something that can interact with whatever frequency it has been designed to interact with. Shionella happens to be the most easily programmed bacteria in the world. It is hackable to basically do whatever the programmer desires it to do, and most people are completely unaware of this. With a little research, it is easy to find that pop science and university science is light years behind what deep-funded research is capable of. However, pop science has been talking about this for years.
All living things need energy to survive, and when you break it down, all of that energy comes from electrons. But most of us can't just lick a battery for energy and call it a day. But in the wild west of the bacteria world, they're creating living wires. And not only is that just plain cool, it might also help us grow wires to use in everything from cell phones to medical implants. Here's where our living wires come in. Cable bacteria can be made up to 10,000 cells, each about a micron across, and they connect to each other to form dense networks in the places they call home. Each cable connects two separate halves of a redox reaction. The cables have extremely high conductivity, and they rival state-of-the-art polymers that we've developed for things like foldable cell phones and solar panels.
Both fungus and bacteria like Shionella can do the same things. Become electrically sensitive, transfer data through predetermined frequencies, send messages, and basically operate like an antenna. They turn whatever it has infected into a transceiver, meaning sending and receiving data. These are just a few examples of what can be put in aerosols, consumer products, or introduced to you in various different ways, or your surroundings, to create a network of wearable devices, quote unquote. Once a person becomes aware that this is our current reality, things begin to look a little different than our 20th century view of what a wearable device is. Knowing this also begins to make you view conditions and ailments that didn't exist before in a completely different manner. An explosion of cases in what came to be called Morgellons appeared around 1999 and have steadily risen over the years. One of the many symptoms of this condition can be visible open sores, which always have fibers or wires present. While the medical community attempted to run cover for this, their figureheads came out of the woodwork to claim they were simply fibers from clothing and claimed the people that were suffering from it were delusional. This has been proven over and over to not be the case, but whether the person has sores or not, the presence of fibers and a biofilm on top of the skin is almost always the case, appearing as dry skin, dandruff, or some other skin condition unless viewed under closer inspection. That is when the reality of it becomes very apparent. It's a strange coincidence that once science groups really began experimenting with Shionella and bacteria, a strange condition hits the Western world that bears the exact traits that science talks about. What are the odds that these strange things start to happen to people when they haven't happened at any other time in history? What are the odds that science happens to be researching bacterial and fungal wires? The facts are that what sounds like a mental illness to the average person could be something as simple as a deviceless phone call test, or what Mark Zuckerberg himself refers to as artificial telepathy. After all, what are the odds that motiveless shooters all heard the same thing? And what are the odds that these all took place during the experimentation and advancements of this technology? This is exactly what all these individuals and companies are talking about: two-way, radio frequency-based artificial telepathy. And that is exactly what they are calling it. Testing something on the population isn't new. The US government has tested bacteria and viruses on various cities in the US many times, and although the average person may not be aware of this, it is well documented. The idea that organizations aren't still doing this is absurd, and the idea that they wouldn't need to test and or monitor people in large numbers for experimental or network purposes is even more absurd. This type of testing has gone to private organizations now to avoid any Freedom of Information Act requests. A wearable device does not mean what it did to your grandparents or your parents or even you. The vague term wearable device has a plethora of legal meanings and interpretations, as does smart device, like smart dust, but that's another video. I'm imploring everyone who sees this to get their heads out of the common ideas of the 20th century and begin paying attention to the vague terminology and the very real science that is being used present day. I've been speaking about this for years, but it's time that the average person understands what is going on right in front of them. If you are aware of it, your perspective of the world can help others, and it can lend understanding to a world where very little makes sense to people anymore.